Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And of course, I am surrounded by the best and the brightest and the most creative on the interwebs who are here on this TriCast show, TriCasting live on Twitch, YouTube, and the audio punched out to our own Discord server. You can go over there and join the Discord server. Just remember, if you want to take part in the show, in the live show, please slide down to the boiler room because, of course, that is where all the cool kids get to hang out. All right, so today, going along with our theme this week, we're basically talking about do we change it? Do we survive it? Do we leave it? Do we escape? Basically, a three-pronged idea, and I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to talk about this, and especially with my, I suppose you could call it specialty when it comes to exploration and exploration in tabletop RPGs. So just bear with me here for our 10 Then segment, which I don't know if I'll keep that same name, but essentially this first 10 minutes is just me allowing people who cannot be in the show to take part in it, just to have maybe 5 to 10 minutes to think about the premise. So the idea here is seasonal and elemental changes in our tabletop RPGs. And while narratively we understand, seasonal changes, and especially those of us that live in regions around the world where we get a significant amount of impactful changes during the seasons. I know living in the Midwest of the United States, and some people that live in other countries may not understand this, but the United States has some pretty dramatic seasonal and elemental changes going on. And I thought, you know what, why don't we just talk about that? And I think it ties in pretty deeply into this notion that in tabletop RPGs as to, do we change it? Meaning change the setting. Like, there are problems going on. Do we have the power, the capabilities, or should we even be changing the nature of the world we live in? Usually that involves a big bad. We go and destroy the big bad and free the people, right? We're changing the nature of the setting. The other method is just adaptation. Maybe the world is a dangerous place and the player characters are dropped on an alien world, or it's been after a magical war or something of that nature, and the world has changed, and it's just our job to adapt to it, to survive in it. It's stealing again from a quote that was made me think of this concept was, I don't expect my players to change the world. I just expect them to live in it. And so getting across this idea that, no, you can't really change anything, but you will have to survive in it. And lastly would be the idea of leaving the world, the setting. And leaving that setting is basically, hey, everything's terrible to the left. Let's go right. Let's get as far away from this place as possible. And that can be very physical. Now, there was a concept of alignment, and I know alignment brings up a whole lot of bad baggage when it comes to tabletop RPGs, which to a part of me feels like, why? But anyway, the concept of, like, maybe you can't change people's minds, or maybe you can't even adapt to the way people think, but we could leave that region. Sorry about that. I'm an almond milk drinker, and sometimes it comes back up in noticeable ways. So sorry about that. So taking this idea just to mix this into our third pillar of Exploration Thursday, and to talk about exploration. And for those of you who are not familiar with the idea of the third pillar of gaming, WotC at one point, Kyle Keels, I apologize. Hey, what's going on there? Yeah, boy, what's going on? The idea that the first and second pillars apply to combat and role playing or social interactions, and exploration is the third one. And so I think the idea of change and not changing and adapting and surviving and leaving, I think really fits in. So, and seasons, I feel, are like, it's right in front of our face. It happens all the time. Literally, the season is everything outside of your front door. happening when it happens. We can't change it, so we do in some ways have to adapt to it. But there are some people who have the means to leave when they feel like the seasons aren't to their liking. There is that as well, and then those of us that have secure locations we can go to, try to leave our season. So I thought I would just drop that in for those people who want to think about that as seasonal changes. Lastly, I will say with seasonal changes, we do have, I'm thinking of like winter, spring, summer, fall, and also environmental changes that we understand happen on a semi-regular basis, but have dramatic effects. And I'm thinking of the rainy season in places that are tropical. I'm thinking of seasonal droughts. Here in the States, we have tornado season, hurricane season. We have regions with earthquakes. We have the extremely dry brush season, which causes, every 2 years there are these major plains and forest fires that happen. Mudslides are a big thing. Dust storms are a thing. So fog, you could go on and on. Sub-zero temperatures, extreme heat, and on and on and on. And just being able to have that in your back pocket, introduce that into the game. Maybe you have a very I don't want to I don't want to cast any doubt on your role playing setting, but maybe you feel like your setting is rather boring. It's a bunch of like medieval light towns and medieval slightly regions, and you're like, man, how can I make this better? And I always thought of the concept of having like a map, like go onto like um, incarnate or some other map making thing, and then having a button, a function where, oh, Dead Man brings up the polar vortex. Yeah, yeah. And like Dead Man says, one day in April back in the late 90s, the weather went from the 80s during the day down to the negative 20s at night. And there is, like Kyle says, I thought hurricane season was over. Um, I mean, there's you can get on YouTube. there are there's footage of like major snowstorms that happened in the morning, and then people are in shorts and t-shirts in the evening. I mean, that's a real thing. I hear in the Ohio Valley we get that, and I know like Colorado gets snow and hot weather as well in the same day. Yeah, the polar vortexes are a thing where I think the lowest temperature here in Ohio was like negative 43. And I remember being out in it and bosses getting pissed off at carriers delivering mail when it was like that cold. And we were just like, F you. Like, what? Why were you late? Why was I late? I was trying to survive. What the hell? It's crazy. Nose hairs all frozen and stuff. Anyway, but getting back to it, maybe having a map where you could just click a button and your map changes based on like rising and lowering tides, winter versus spring versus summer on a map or something, and then having the players deal with the intricacies thereof. Like Mufa says, sounds like normal Ohio springtime. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thanks for allowing me to have a little bit of a 10 thin moment. 10, like meaning 10, then you can kind of check out if you need to, which is fine, perfectly fine. People don't have 45 minutes to an hour every day to take part in the show, but I thought I'd talk about that. All right, now here's the other meta part I think we could add to this, and that is the idea of um, periodic changes on a meta level for player characters. Meaning, like, how about let's talk Dungeons and Dragons? How about clerical option? Clerical. How about cleric options where, or druidic options where you get to pick, or each season your character's capabilities change based on the season, or not rogue, excuse me, a ranger option that's not based on a location like a jungle or mountain or forest, but it's based on a particular season, like a winter season or the summer season or fall or something like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Even heck, even like your classic bardic or paladin concepts that are based around particular seasonal changes, meaning like we know in the military that there are military schools that are based on particular seasons, right? There's a difference between surviving in the desert than it would be surviving in the Arctic, and so yeah, like Vampanoid brings up, that was the thing with the Ladrin, where they had personality changes and character functions and things that would change based on the seasons, and that's kind of embraced by Fey creatures, where they have the Fey courts that may shift and change based on the seasons, and that's how their governmental entities and decisions are made with the courts of the Fae and whatnot. I like that kind of idea, and it would be a little bit daunting to figure out who gets what when and at what time. But I think if you've got a bunch of players that are always looking for new options and they get kind of bored with their character, like, oh man, I made a bard, but I've got this rogue idea, and then I got this warlock idea. Maybe this might be an interim fix with like a barbarian that changes intrinsically based on the season. Like maybe there is a hibernation season, and then there's the hunting season, and there's the mating season, and but the barbarian capabilities kind of intermingle with that, but more on a societal level. Rick Johansson says, I mean, you always take an hour of the day for the show, so why shouldn't we? That's not, it's not a necessity. I don't expect other people to be here. I'm here, hopefully, like a little bit of gravity, and then other people show up. So, all right, so we know the stereotypical concept of the trade route, okay, in role playing games, especially fantasy. Although science fiction has a lot to do with this as well, where there's a trade route and people are used to going from A to B, but the seasons are changing, and the player characters must either rescue, save, hurry up and get from one place to another before the rains come in or the snow comes in or there's a seasonal melt or change or something. And I think these are really cool, easy to insert into your role playing game methods to get the players to move, get them to shift and change. And maybe there's even the concept of needing to use different types of maybe equipment. Like, for example, let's take Cyberpunk and Shadowrun. I mean, how many times we often don't really even think about that when it comes to well, good morning there, Tynes Dungeon. Yeah, it's not morning everywhere, but for those who are on the other side of the world, looking at you, Keel, it is, but it is morning here for us in the States. A little too early, but yeah, like for example, you guys know I'm a mailman here in the States, and it's been really cool talking to a bunch of my customers about how it's spring and it's been sunshine and the weather's getting warmer and it feels great outside, and it's like it's like a psychological need to get out of get out of this hibernation that we've all been in, being stuck away. There's a number of my customers that are still quarantined away for whether they need to or not, and it's a great mechanism to have insert bad guys into the world. There are the southern sun is setting. Ooh, but you're ahead of us though, there, Keel. It is 6:15 in the morning here in the States, in my Eastern Standard Time. Not sure what time it is on your side of the world. Vampanoid says tropical locations don't have the traditional four seasons, just wet and dry seasons. If you're a bard, it's always wet season. If you're dirty, yeah, oh yeah. Times Dungeon says it's 5 a.m. for me. Ooh, you must be just getting back from work or something, or you can't sleep or whatever. hot as heck and sunny. Wow. And it is 6:15 p.m. Thursday for me. Ooh, that's what Keel says. See, yeah, yeah. Nearly dinner time. Oh, wow. That's a and Times Dungeons is just waking up. Golly, that's just so I love it because I mean, listen, I'm a man of a certain age that remembers a period of time where beepers were a brand new thing. So the fact that I, in the comfort of my own home, I can just get online and friggin' you know, the crack of dawn and era show is just really bizarre to me, but I love it. I love it so much. But anyway, yeah, there are like Vampino is bringing up, like, tropical locations don't have four seasons, but but not necessarily traditional four seasons, but there is a seasonal change, right? It's the wet season or dry season. Heck, to the north of us, it's either winter or it's not. you know, there's a I mean, there's some places here in the Ohio Valley, we get a lot of flood. There's a lot of people who live on floodplains, and they could care less about the four seasons. They're just like, listen, I live near a river, and we're getting into the rainy season, and I just need sandbags and a prayer to hope that the rivers don't overflow their bounds and whatnot. And I think we can really play with that when it comes to exploration in our role playing games, meaning like let's go with the tropical rain season. Okay, I mean, a region, the player characters could go through a region that's normally navigatable on foot to come back and find out that it's completely flooded. What do they do then? Or they're in a region where we've seen this in a more stunt like cinematic method, where there's so much rain that there's like mudslides, and you're fighting the bad guys, and somebody's trying to drown someone in like dirty mud pools or something, or dangerous creatures which are normally relegated to the narrow rivers. When the rivers start to expand and flow over their borders and boundaries, maybe those same nasty creatures are more likely to spread out amongst the flood zones and whatnot. And also rain. I mean, can you have a mechanical effect when it comes to rain and that pyromancer that happens to be a player character in your game? Why not? Torrential rain not only puts out fires, it can be if it's raining hard enough, it can be a visual barrier. And in, like, let's say fifth edition, what if torrential rain, which I actually have put into the cinematic environments books, but what if torrential rain gives everything resistance to fire? What if every fire spell is halved, meaning like in intensity and duration. So instead of a wall of fire that lasts 10 minutes, maybe it's only 5 minutes. And instead of 8d6 damage if you walk through that wall of fire, it's only 4d6. I mean, you can have mechanical effects when it comes to the weather. And that's just an example. But yeah, why not? Times Dungeon says, I'm in Florida. We have summer, tourist, hunting, and hurricane seasons. That's awesome, though. And you're so right. Yep, because here in Ohio, we have snowbirds, individuals that leave. They technically live in Florida, but they come up north when summer season hits in Florida because it's so intense. So they come back to Ohio, which is where they've normally come from, but they've retired down in Florida. And so, yeah, lots of people who have the means actually leave Florida as a season because of the tourist season and whatnot. And why the hell not? Maybe hunting season is friggin' dangerous for the player characters because there's so many people out there who are not intent on hunting the player characters, but they are causing a shift and change in how many owlbears there are out there, and a bunch of drunk hunters out there who think they're rangers, but they're just zero level people that are in the way. I mean, there's hurricanes. Man, you think about hurricanes. I know a lot of the, other countries don't get hurricanes, but we do here in the States, and it's terrible. Hurricanes and tornadoes, man. Rickard says, we've been hibernating for a year. Any reason to go outside cannot come soon enough. I absolutely agree with you. And says it's weird when you think about it that these days talking with people from every corner of the world is kind of like, okay, so yeah, listen, it's it's still an amazing feat of broadcast engineering for me. It's still a magical feat for me that I've got 3 chat windows open. I used to use a little bit of software to put all the chat together, and I was like, that's stupid. It's just easier for me to read all the different chats. But to chat with people from around the world, I've ever since I upgraded um, my internet, I've had very few problems. Matter of fact, the other day I ordered a new microphone so my audio's better, and I'm broadcasting audio and video. It's still amazing. Still amazing. I love it. um, Times Dungeon says I lost everything to a hurricane October 7th, 2018. I am so sorry. Oh, Keel's got to leave. Time to bounce. Thanks. No problems. No problems. He's in Australia, around the world. Yeah, dude, I'm so sorry. Well, I don't know if you're a dude, but wow. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine. And I'm Times Dungeon says still rebuilding. And I don't mean to make light of that, but that experience, much like we all have our experiences with the world outside of us, and the world itself, the earth itself, and how it operates has an impact on us. We have these experiences. I think they're awesome, um, creative fuel to instill upon our players, or even if you're making a character to put into the world, to say, hey, you know what? You raise your hand like, hey, DM, this is there's some really terrible side effects to this thing happening. Here's how I would handle it, and just go, oh man, that's wow. And if you thought about that, you know, Times Dungeon says hardships, we all have them, and they go into my campaigns. Yeah, and we already know that role playing games are a way to kind of exercise the demons out a little bit. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. I've never lived in a tropical region, but I sure would, sure to hell will role play with somebody who can tell me what it means to live in that place. Right? I'd love to be in a game with you to say, hey, no, you know what? Hurricanes are terrible, and here's the real side effects of something like that, and put it into the campaign. Hell yeah, hell's yes. you know. Uh, Rickard says, "Wait, the population of owlbears have dwindled? How did that happen?" Boom, boom. Wait a minute, we can't have role playing dad jokes. That's that's like it's like crossing the streams. Al did that happen? Oh man, we need T-shirts on that one. We really do. But yep, dad jokes. So the the great thing about using the seasons to change things are, mechanically we can add all kinds of mechanical challenges for the players, like going to the hurricanes or snow, or um, when it's very humid and hot outside, or the dry brush regions and droughts and whatnot. I mean, all of those. Oh no! What, did my owl pun ruffle your feathers? Oh shit! Oh man, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to make a Dungeons and Dragons dad joke, like blog or something like that. Just pop one in, or go back to the old Twitter. Remember Twitter back in the day used to be a comedic haven where everybody who was a comic was always putting in like these little like one-liner jokes, a joke a day or something. Yeah, yeah. Although the owlbears are loving it. But yeah, seasonal changes cause. How many of you have lived in a region where the seasons bring some kind of animal? Uh, Yep, a dad joke book. Of course, of course. Uh, I remember here we had ladybugs one time. We had ant season. We had it was a type of bee. I can't remember what kind of bees it was. We had a bee season. D&D joke Twitter, no dice, man. Yeah, yeah. I know Twitter's a kind of a bit of a minefield. I think, although every place seems to be that way. Now, one going back to the Eladrin idea about player characters changing some of their capabilities as the seasons come. They've already instituted, and I was already doing this anyway, but fifth edition's latest book, they suggested the idea that as you get to, I believe it's when you get to a character level where you get a stat bump, you have the option to shift around some of your skills. And maybe this is a thing that happens with player characters like, oh, we were living in the snowy tundra, but as spring comes along, we need to change what we're doing. So maybe certain characters are shift and change around some of their skills and other capabilities based on the seasonal capabilities. Like, yeah, during the winter season, my druid could very easily produce flame, but now that it's springtime, I've got, I don't know, Goodberry, or I can talk to animals or something like that. Like it might be something of that nature. Vampiro says no one enjoys purple worm mating season. Yeah, and sometimes we um inserting monsters and animals into the world that are doing things other than just like random encounter. You turn the corner and a monster attacks you. Maybe they're doing other things like building nests or trying to find a haven or just patrolling their territory, or it's literally mating season and you just happen to be in the way as they start to ram their horns together, or they're like again searching for a mate, or do what is it, displays of affection, with spreading out, making noises or mating calls or feathers or something like that. Scaled creatures that are removing their skin, like snakes and lizards and things that rub themselves across a nice rough tree or a stone, and they peel their skin off because they're getting their new layer in. And of course, when there's tons of normal mundane animals doing things, turning the volume up to 11 is always a great thing to do. you know um, there's a reason why there's a giant falcon or a rock, ROC, nest up in a massive tree or something, and all that the rock is doing is flying around gathering twigs and fibers for its nest that it's making for its eggs. Maybe it's not actually attacking you. Rickard says that's a nice foreshadowing, especially if you want to tell your players, hey, guess what? There's this other danger, but there's this further danger ahead. Here's an idea to, when you bypass this thing that's happening, now you know the dangers that are ahead, even if you didn't lay it out to tell them in a meta term. Guess what? There's danger ahead, right? Like Rickard says, finding the discarded chitin of a purple worm. Yep, you find their, whether they've eaten a meal, their waste product, their effluvia, meaning like literal waste. It could be claws, horns, chitin, skin, nails, teeth. That when like in my other room, I have a it's about maybe the length of my forearm, and I was out in park near my house, and of course it was a horn from a deer, and they lose their smaller antlers to get to start growing bigger ones, and they rub them off or they fall off or whatever. I don't know the process, but I found it, brought it home, and it's just like sitting in my little man cave. And what if a PC finds that and you're like, oh, it's a tooth the length of my arm, and you're like, this isn't a good thing. We found this because that's their baby teeth. Yeah, that baby tooth is like the length of like a short sword. If I sharpen it up enough, that means their teeth are actually growing larger than that. We need to get the hell out of here, right? Deadman says, or crabs or spiders molting their exoskeleton. Yep, yep. Or don't find a sack of unborn, let's say, spider's eggs because mommy's probably nearby. Or like you said, crabs molting their exoskeletons. What's the other crab? There's a the one that finds a seashell and carries around on their back. Um, what my brain just cannot think of the think of that crab, but you dead man knows it. Times Dungeon says, I had a griffin migration that went over this town every year. Ooh, its population carried wood umbrellas every season because of the droppings. That is awesome. Yeah, why don't griffins go on migrations? Why wouldn't they? And again, it doesn't need to be a combat encounter, but seeing a flock of griffins fly overhead kind of tells you what the world's like. Even if the players never encounter them ever again, man, that's a great way to just give your players some kind of information about your world and what's going on in the world. If they're flying north, what's happening in the south? Maybe there's something happening in the south with we've seen it's hermit crabs. Woo. Wow, my brain just shut off. Yes, hermit crabs. Why couldn't there be animals or even sentient creatures that are like hermit crabs going around gathering as many crab shells as they can to carry around on their backs and whatnot? Maybe they act as like plate mail armor to them or something. Um, it's the flail the it's the end of the season from the flail snails that died during the winter season that the hermit crabbed creatures come up to get the shells of the flail snails. And I don't know if would be a real thing, but maybe why not? Uh, one of the players, a dragonborn, found out the oils and acids in the droppings could be used to clean and polish metals. Ooh, ooh, I like that, Times Dungeon. Yeah, I mean, maybe there are things that you can get from animal effluvia that actually helps for something else. Like, yes, we know like wyverns or wyverns, if you want, whichever pronunciation you want, have like poisoned tails or whatnot. But what what about their stomach acid? What about their wings? Do they molt their wings to grow bigger ones? Does their poison age out? Like, do they have to extrude their poison to get another sack of poison later or something? We don't know. And that, you can make up whatever the hell you want. Like Vampanoid says, everyone loves dragon scales. Not exactly sure why it is that we do love that, but yeah, dragons are badass. Why not dragon scales? I'm not sure if discarded dragon scales, like dragon scales that fall off of a dragon, could still be used, but maybe you don't have to kill the dragon. Maybe it's just an idea of just gathering their scales together. there's a there's a there are scavengers that get dragon scales, and maybe only like 1 out of 100 are actually useful to make like a shield out of it, or you get enough scales together, you can make dragon armor out of it. It's very difficult to collect all the scales together and treat them in some kind of way with like oils or heat or some other arcane thing to make some scale mail armor out of it. Sure, why the hell not? Dragon bones. Dead Man says dragon bones are a big deal as well. Tons Dungeon says he started a business selling shite as a weapon cleaner. Come get ya jaws of shite. Just rub it. I can imagine those. What's the only sold on TV commercials where the people stand around and the person opens up the jar or whatever it is, and it's like the Ron Popeil rub the thing, makes the thing happen, and everyone's like, oh, it makes chocolate pasta? Yes, just set it and forget it. Got the little microphone to the mouth, trying to sell things. Wait, you there? Come here. Rub this on your armor. It'll give it a shine. Really? Here, let me just stick your hand down in it and scoop it and put it on your armor. Wow, that really does give it a shine. Thanks, buddy. How much? Just 4 installments of 38 gold pieces a month. That's it. Oh, man. Uh, Talked to the party in the following migration until he had 50 barrels of droppings. That's crazy. Talk the party into following the migration. I love it. And I think our concept of change and embracing change, whether the player characters are they, of course, themselves, and they're moving through a land that is changing as they move through it. Whether on the last month they went through this region, it was like a dead forest. It was all uh, blackened bark, no leaves. The ground was misty, and it was fog everywhere, and you could almost smell the decomposition because life had left this region. And then you come back a month later and it's like green and verdant, and all of those dead leaves that were down on the ground now have made have protected the soil below, and it's decomposed, and now there's like new growth happening there. I mean, why not? And you could how about going to a Fey Grove where you get traditional 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall, but each one of them happens every round. Like during spring, the leaves grow and there's flowers and you're choking on the pollen and there's like vines growing. And then during the summer, it gets extremely hot. And I don't know what happens in summertime. I don't know. The PCs get horny or something. I don't know what you call it. You start to get dehydrated, and then when the fall happens, all the leaves start falling off the trees, and they blow around, and they're kind of blinding you. And then winter comes along, and you're like getting blasted by a blizzard, and there's snow, stacking up to your knees, and the fey creatures are like, I don't understand. Why are you confused? This is just. Oh, you're saying the seasons are changing? Like, I never noticed. The Dryad's like, I don't know. It's all the same to me. Vampanoid says, get on that dragon coffee harvest. Civet style. Different type roast for each color. Yeah, but who's reaching their hand and elbow deep into like the dung piles of dragons? Oh man. Yeah, like the butt weasel coffee, that expensive ass butt weasel coffee. Come on, dead man. I know you know this off the top of your head. Where's a website that sells that specializes in selling the uh the civet style coffee, the tree weasels that eat the coffee beans and then they harvest the crapped out beans. I know this is friggin' expensive. I know one of you guys has it out there. Please put it, or at least guide it to the chat or something like that. Oh, a dragon paleontologist like from Jurassic Park. Ooh, that's a really cool idea. I mean, that's a great. I guess if you had to pick a character class, that's a great like bardic or roguish character type class without playing too much into that type. Meaning like bardic far more towards the lore and storytelling, and not so much playing music, but far more into the I heard rumor about, or there's a legend about something or something like that. Ooh, there we go. Mufa. Kopi Luwak is a coffee that consists of partially digested coffee cherries, which have been eaten and defecated by the Asian palm civet. I'm not going to pronounce the Latin version of it. It is also called civet coffee. I'm calling it civet, but it could be kivet. I'm not sure. The cherries are fermented as they pass through a civet's intestines, and after being defecated with other fecal matter, they are collected. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I listen, as human beings, we're brilliant as like a sentient society, but we're also pretty stupid because, man, Vampanoid says, Kopi Loic, it's called, tried once. Kopilluwak. Yeah, and listen, I wouldn't be against trying it. Much like the idea of eating insects, that's not a big thing here in the States, but I would try it once. But I have to say, like, which human being initially thought this was a good idea? And then which other human beings after that person said, you know what, you're right? Like, it just boggles my mind. Human beings, we are the most brilliant, industrious of creatures, and we are also some of the stupid ones. Much like alcohol. Because we friggin' try to ferment everything. I can't imagine there wasn't. I'm sure there's a bunch of failures, but man, when somebody found fermenting, they were like, "Oh, let's ferment your big toe." Well, it did fall off 3 weeks ago. Let's see what happens. I'm with you, Mofa. Yeah, who thought I'm going to boil up and whatever comes out of the end of that thing? Yeah, one person steps in it like, ooh. Someone else is like, those are coffee beans, and the other person's like, yeah, ooh, trying to scrape it off of their foot. Like, don't do that. That could be useful. Yeah, like Times Dungeon says, well, a lot of that came from trying to find medicines. Oh, no, 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 no. No, like I said, we are brilliant and we are industrious. I Yeah. Vampanoid says, well, I mean, we eat eggs, same hole. Okay. I give you the slow clap on that one. Yeah, you're right. Stuff comes out of a hole. We sure do. I mean, there's so many things that you can kind of look at today and go, why did we do that again? Now, I'm not saying we should stop. I'm just going like, yeah, the first person who found this out, like, good for you, but wow, wow. Oh, Tesla, Walmart.com. Okay, let's see how much this is. I'm sorry. It's only $13? 13 American? Premium Kaya Kopi Luwak from Indonesia. Wild Palm Civets Arabica coffee beans, 10 grams. $13. Well, 13. That's pretty. That's a small. Yeah, that's a small amount for $13. 200 grams. 200 grams. How much is that? 108 American medium roast. Yeah. Wow. Walmart sells it. Ha. Thank you there, Tesla. That's awesome. Didn't think we'd go there on the show, but why the hell not? Um, oh man, and yeah, you make a point there about like Times Dungeon. Let's see. Let's pivot back here towards like exploration and such. Maybe in our worlds there are ways to so-called find things in the world. In other words, we can shift like magic items, rewards for player characters. Maybe there's just things in nature that we can find, and given the right circumstances, season, location, elevation, you can start adding all these obstacles together, all of these situational mechanisms together, and those could be things that player characters find, maybe like one and done kind of things that the players find out there, like finding medicinal aids for something, but it happens to be in the location of the territory of a dangerous monster or whatnot. Or again, collecting dragon scales might not be a good idea because dragons, and but maybe their value is so great that there is something that you can have from it. Times Dungeon says we also copy nature with a lot of that, like eating mushrooms, berries, eggs, and more. We started by watching wildlife eat them. Oh yeah, I I had a tour. I went on a and it was so basic. I don't know why I didn't even think about it. So my wife and I, we went on a tour. Went on a cruise here in the Caribbean, and went on a tour. And the person was talking about nature and whatnot, and made a basic comment and said, "You don't eat anything that nature itself doesn't consume." right? If the animals leave it alone, you leave it alone. If the animals eat it, you can eat it. And I was like, that actually makes perfect sense. That's like, I was like, wait a minute, you're right. That, it was like, yeah, those berries, don't eat them. We're like, what? They're like, they're poisonous. You don't want to eat those. Like, why? It says, because the berries are everywhere and the animals don't eat them. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. Deadman says it was mentioned as a delicacy for the Kinder in Dragonlance. The uh Kinder. Oh my god. Why would you bring them up? Why would you do that? They were the worst. That was the heyday of one of the worst player character options ever created for role playing games. I think the Watts, not Watsy, but just Dungeons and TSR, and then into Watsy is still living that down even till today. Yeah, you get your rear end balled up in a corner and stomped out for playing a Kinder. Yeah, don't even bring that up. Yeah, you guys, you look up why it is people hated the Kinder if you don't understand who they are and what kind of halfling subspecies they are. Mufa says, what kind of coffee can you get out of dragon poo? Different dragons, different flavors? I don't know. I think green dragons would have more of it would be more acidic. Black dragon poo. Yeah, it might have that like a dark roast. uh, oh man. Ty's Dungeon says, like I sent a party to an unknown alien planet's prehistoric time, and the druid and ranger's abilities to find food on their own was hindered. They had to stalk and study wildlife to find food, and that's a thing, right? Like, Dead Man's like, I have a friend who loves the Kinder. Of course you do. Are you still friends with that person? Because I'm thinking that's not the case. I'm picking. I'm just picking with you. Dragon coffee has a bit of a metallic taste. Yeah. Oh no. You know how the barista is able to pour the cream into the cream on top and make the little shapes and whatnot. That must be the cream are the from the good dragons, and the darker roast might be from the evil dragons, and you got to mix them together. Mufa's like, they are not your friend. Yeah, just an excuse to be an asshole. Some of those character options and stuff. There's a lot of things in role playing. Man, we could just do a whole week on like assholeness in role playing games, like things people do to they use as an excuse just to be an ass. uh the bane of role-playing games. I don't know, but anyway, circling back so we can kind of put this on the end. Seasonal changes, elemental changes, like Times Dungeon says, it doesn't necessarily, you don't need the exact four traditional seasons. There can be elemental and environmental changes in the world, like the rainy season or hunting season. Tourist tourist season is a big deal in places. I'm trying to think of like whether it's wind or rain or earthquakes or mudslides. Dust and fog are a big deal. So throwing those things in and having mechanical effects on them as well is I think it's just a great thing to do in a game to throw a little monkey wrench, change things up a little bit, and how we react to it. Maybe in the spring, the city is open and everyone's just walking around like it's no big deal. But maybe in the fall, they understand that more predators are getting hungry towards the winter season because there's less game out there for them, less prey. So they start closing the city up and the doors start getting locked, and they're like, "Ooh, what do you mean the sun's going down? You lock the city gates or something?" And they're like, "Yeah, you didn't see the signs? Like when the sun goes down, we lock up. You're stuck out there on your own." You can start changing out the societal elements as well, and then maybe more of a meta thing. Maybe player characters start changing, like the Eladrin. Maybe there's a druidic path that you make up, a druidic circle that changes with the seasons, or clerics begin changing uh, there are seasonal gods, or maybe there's a god of the seasons that changes what they grant their parishioners, their worshippers, or something. Maybe even there's a fighter type that uses different weapons and techniques based on the season. I mean, maybe you can't fight the same way in knee deep snow as you can on mud slick cliff sides or something like that. So, yeah. Yeah, Mufa says, mind blown, hadn't considered making up new seasons for setting flavor. Like, yeah, something that doesn't. All right, here's a challenge: new seasons that do not apply to our four traditional seasons. I don't know where I would go with that, but I wonder if you could create something that in your world happens that is considered a seasonal change. Like the people are just, oh, I don't know, black necrotic lightning always spills from the sky with a wind that is a wind made from the sounds of the restless dead or something that blows through the region, and it's not just fog, but it looks like people like ghosts or something that flow through the region, and people are just like hunkering down. They're not even scared. They just like close up their windows because of course ghosts blow through the season like wisps of smoke and fog or something. Like maybe something like that happens in your world. Mufa says that idea is going into the idea box for a new setting. Yep. Open up the box and stick it in. That's what we're here for. Steal it. Deadman says Dark Sun had that for the druids. Ricker says, in that case, I think Kenders fall into a great concept, terrible execution category. Yeah. Dark Sun's druids. I can't remember how they, because I know there were very few rare ones that could create life because it was so desolate. Um, but yeah, Mufa says some sort of solar storm season would be applicable to something I have in mind. Ooh, solar storms. Shit. Of course it rains fire. Every season it does. Didn't you know that? Oh man. Fishing seasons count as a season. Yep. When it comes to like hunting, fishing, and the need to cull herds, because a lot of hunting seasons happen not just because of getting the game, but maybe it brings about a danger to the community because of the overpopulation of a thing, right? Like if you live in the path of a migration of some sort, maybe it's too dangerous to have that migration happen too close to your region, and that could create conflict on its own. You know, Vampanoid says on your alien world. Ooh, shoot it, shift it. Okay. On your alien world, cleric casts create food and water. Party. What the fuck is that? Cleric, I don't know. Maybe the local cuisine? I like that. I like that a lot. And you again, this is flavor. So does your cleric who creates food and water, do they only create their hometown food, or do they create food and water and it appears as the food local to the area? Hmm? Huh? Hmm? Which one is it? Hey, JP, the person who created our Discord server, I have to thank you very much. Jumping on the tail end, you're all right. You are all right. TD says many don't understand, but as an outdoorsman and someone working in biology, migratory and breeding habits of fish make certain times of year only time it is possible to catch some types of fish. Ooh, that is right. The classic salmon swimming upstream and the bear grabbing it out the stream. That is actually specific to that migratory method of getting the fish. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get them at all, right? And so the bears come out and dial up to 11. The owl bears go after the giant fish that swim upstream. The merfolk who are swimming upstream. And snatching a merfolk that's swimming upstream, jumping out of the water. Owlbear's like, snatch. The other merfolk go, sorry, Bob's dead. Oh well. But you are absolutely correct about that. I'm being facetious, but you get the point. Movacall says a plant treant based race. for a monster, CR 1 to 3 in spring, okay? Then peaking at 5 to 8 in summer, going back to 1 to 3 in autumn, but switching from spring-like powers to decay and necrotic, then ultimately going into a dormant winter. I I love that. I love that. A treant, you guys know living trees, a treant-based race that instead of like doing springtime blunt damage by knocking things away, it starts getting like a decay necrotic touch or something. And you could steal that from what's one that has necrotic touch, like the mummy. You could steal that, or just change the damage feature. Just go, oh, instead of doing, I don't know how much damage it does, 3d6, maybe it does 1d6 bludgeoning and 2d6 necrotic or something like that. Yep. Vampanoid says wild magic storms are a possibility. Yep, absolutely. And maybe it's seasonal. Maybe this region just has wild magic storms, whatever. Hey, guess what? In the fall, every spellcaster rolls on the wild magic table. That's it. And make up your own tables too for what happens. Or maybe the tables shift and change what they have. Okay. A wild magic sorcerer, but you have 3 to 4 different tables based on the season that they are in, because their wild magic takes from that season. So spring is different than summer, or flood season is different than solar storm season, or something like that. Dungeon says, create a world where the planet spins so slowly where half the planet is livable for 6 months, but you have to move along with it, or be frozen in darkness. Oh, like the blasted cold world, where, like, say one part of the world is facing the sun, the other part isn't facing the sun, and you have this thin barrier. But like you're saying, it's moving so slowly, you have to keep moving or you'll die, because if you stay still, if you move too fast, you'll just be incinerated. You stay still, everything is dead behind you and frozen. I like that. I like that a lot. Ooh, you could have moving cities, or there are empty cities that, as this planet spins back to the period of time where the city is inhabitable again, everybody moves back into the dead city, coming back home, even though they've left for 6 months. As the snows melt or whatever, it doesn't even have to be cold. It could just be dead instead of cold or something. Or what if the sun is literally life-giving? And when you're away from the sun, things can't heal, or they don't. The necrotic things wake up. The undead start roaming the world during the darkness. So you have to stay within the sun, but you can't stay under the noon sun because you'll die. So you have to stay in this twilight region. Ooh, I like that. JP says, living seasons are fun. Fae stuff, or nanites that control the atmosphere, or living planets that oust invaders and natural phenomenon. Rickard says, how would that work, though? There's no plant life, thus no animal life, thus nothing for the people to eat. Dude, this you're trying to make sense of a thing? I know. I don't know how that would work if everything's dead behind you, but the sun gives life, but the world is spinning. It would have to be one of those, like, what's it called? Fast forward time motion things, like put a seed in the ground and 5 minutes later there's a plant that comes out of it. I don't know. Yeah, like Deadman says, Mercury in eclipse phase. Yeah, Mercury spins very slowly, with one side blasted by the sun, the other side. In real life, the Mercury spins. I think does it counter rotate? And it spins so slow. It spins slower than its yearly rotation or something. It can't. Ominal says, gives seasons of monsters. Players on a moon, and as other moons come close into orbit, and those bring different monsters down, give seasons of monsters. Oh, a Star Frontiers module had a world similar, with most monsters either migrated or went into hibernation to avoid the cold. That's a great way to flip the enemies that are happening in your world. Like, let's go back to the tropics, and we've got like green and black dragons, and it's all rainy, and it's like life is everywhere, and it's like moist and stuff, but then the season flips. And so now, instead of like black and green dragons, now this is when the blue and the bronze dragons come out. I don't know if bronze dragons are dry, but like the drier seasons come out, the maybe or colder weather creatures come out and whatnot. And maybe you've got a bunch of monster books and you're like, can I just use my other monsters here? And you're like, you sure can. It's a different season. Heck, you could even have your seasons may not even be the twisting of the world. Maybe there was a titanic battle that happened that destroyed the world, and periodically through the same time, same place kind of thing, that the constructs or the undead or something come out of the ground and they start doing battle again because of that old war and no one can stop it. You know, Tesla says, one day on Mercury seems to last 2 Mercurian years, or 176 Earth days. Sunrise to sunrise. It is daytime from 1 Mercurian year and nighttime from 1 Mercurian year. Wow. 176 Earth days. Yeah, you might want to live on the twilight area on that one. Mufa says, maybe like the plant and animal life in the Brandon Sanders Stormlight archives, the planet is racked by devastating storms. Yep. Much of the plant life has shells to retreat into during storms. We go back to the hibernation effect. And maybe, just maybe, the hibernation is a way for a lot of these living animal and sentient monsters or creatures to survive. Like if it wasn't for the hibernation, they would just overrun the place, and so they must hibernate. And maybe it's safer for human beings. Like, you know what? The only place for us to go is down into the dungeon of the creatures hibernating, or we can't travel because we got to wait for those creatures to hibernate. Like, yeah, we're 3rd level. We better wait for the dragons to hibernate. Otherwise, we are dead. Let them fill their gullet on virgins, because yeah, we're not going to survive. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. As usual, our last 10 to 15 minutes has most of us being very brilliant. I really appreciate it, guys. I want to thank you so much for just being part of the show. Again, Future Friday tomorrow, we're going to talk CTAC for some reason, and Future Friday, Altered Carbon, CTAC. You'll see how this relates back into the normal thing. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I appreciate it. Have a great one. Thanks for watching.